Did you know that Saint Teresa of Avila revealed exactly what your departed loved one sees when you cry alone at night, when you forget to pray for them, or when you make mistakes in their name? Are you ready to discover the 10 moments that a soul witnesses from beyond? What you are about to hear will forever change the way you remember those who have gone before you. Saint Teresa of Avila, a doctor of the Church and one of the greatest mystics in all of history, received extraordinary revelations about what happens after death. And among those revelations, there is one that very few people have ever come across. The 10 specific moments when the soul of your departed loved one can see, feel, and experience, from the other side, everything that involves you and your family. These are not invented ideas or pious guesses. These are profound teachings that Saint Teresa shared with remarkable precision, preserved by the Church for centuries. Today you will discover each of those 10 moments, one by one, so you know exactly what that soul, the one you loved so dearly in Puest, is witnessing right now. If you want your loved one to rest in true and lasting peace, type in the comments, "Saint Teresa, intercede for my family." Stay until the very end, because the 10th moment will reveal something that could change the eternal destiny of the soul you missed so deeply. And throughout this video, you will uncover crucial details you need to know before we reach that final revelation. Before we begin, open your heart to this truth. Give this a like if you desire peace for the souls of your loved ones, and subscribe if you want to honor their memory with the truth of the faith. Teresa de Cepeda y Ahumada was born in Avila, Spain, in the year 1515. From childhood, she showed an extraordinary spiritual sensitivity. But it was in her adult life, as a Carmelite nun, that God began granting her mystical experiences that would leave a permanent mark on the history of the Church. Saint Teresa did not only reform the Carmelite order, she did not only write spiritual masterpieces like the Interior Castle and the Book of Her Life. She also received visions, ecstasies, and revelations about realities that lie far beyond our human understanding. Among those revelations, there is one that has remained hidden from many believers. Perhaps because its depth is unsettling, perhaps because its truth cuts too close to the bone. Through divine grace, Saint Teresa was allowed to contemplate what happens to souls after death. She did not only see heaven, purgatory, and hell. She saw something far more intimate. She saw how those souls remain connected to the people they left behind on earth. She saw what they feel. She saw what they witness. She saw what they suffer, or what they celebrate, when you, their beloved, do or fail to do certain things. And what Saint Teresa discovered is deeply sobering. There are 10 specific moments, 10 concrete situations, when the soul of your departed loved one can see what is happening with you and your family from the other side. 10 moments when that soul is present, watching, feeling, waiting. Moments when you think you are alone, but you are not. Moments when your actions, your words, your prayers, or your silence have a direct impact on that soul who no longer walks beside you, yet remains connected to you in ways you could never have imagined. The Catholic Church has always taught the communion of saints, that mystical bond between those of us on earth, the souls in purgatory, and the blessed in heaven. But Saint Teresa went further. She did not simply affirm that doctrine. She lived it. She experienced it firsthand. And she left us precise insights for understanding how that communion works in our everyday lives, in our grief, in our most real and ordinary moments. These 10 moments are not random. They are not pious speculation. They are the fruit of the mystical contemplation of a saint who was declared a doctor of the Church precisely because of the depth and accuracy of her teaching. Each of these moments rests on a solid foundation: the Catholic tradition, the theology of the communion of saints, and the supernatural experiences that Teresa recorded with astonishing clarity in her writings. You are about to learn each of those 10 moments. You will come to understand what your loved one feels when you weep, what they experience when you pray for them, what they go through when you forget them, what they rejoice in when you honor them rightly. And above all, you will discover that death did not break the bond of love. It only transformed it. It elevated it to a dimension that calls you to greater responsibility, greater awareness, and greater faith. Because if there is one thing Saint Teresa made absolutely clear, it is this: what you do here on earth has eternal consequences for those souls. Your choices do not only affect you, they affect those who have gone ahead. And they know it, they see it, they feel it, and some of them, those still in purgatory, are pleading with tears you cannot see, but that God hears with infinite mercy. Get ready, because the first moment your loved one sees from the afterlife will break your heart. The first moment. The first moment your loved one sees from the other side is perhaps the most heartbreaking of all. It is that instant when you, believing no one is watching, fall apart completely. You close the bedroom door, you sit on the edge of the bed, and you cry. You cry with that deep, private grief you cannot show to the world. You cry over their absence. You cry over your loneliness. You cry because the void they left is so immense it almost hurts physically. Saint Teresa revealed something that shakes you to the core. Those tears do not fall in vain. The soul you loved is there. They see you. They hear you. And what they feel in that moment depends on the state they are in. If that soul is in heaven, they look upon your pain with infinite compassion, interceding before God on your behalf so that comfort may reach you. If they are in purgatory, your weeping becomes a cry that pierces through the spiritual dimensions, and that soul suffers in a way we cannot fully comprehend. Why do they suffer? Because they love you. Because in their purification they have come to understand things they could not grasp in life. And one of those things is the pain their departure caused you. That soul would give anything to hold you, to tell you they are all right, that you should stop crying, that you will be together again before long. But they cannot. They are separated from you by a veil that only God can lift. And so they too weep, a spiritual weeping that is both purification and love at the very same time. Saint Teresa explained that the souls in purgatory have a far greater capacity for perception than we do. They are no longer limited by the body. They are no longer blinded by the distractions of this world. They can see spiritual reality with absolute clarity. And that means that when you weep, they do not merely see your tears. They see the source of your pain. They see your loneliness. They see your despair. They see every thought that crosses your mind as the grief overtakes you. And here is the most important thing. Those souls do not want you to weep without hope. They long for your tears to become prayer, for your pain to become communion, for your sorrow to be the bridge that lifts them closer to the eternal light. Because every tear of yours can be a drop of mercy for them if you offer it with faith. Every sob can be a powerful intercession when you unite it to the sacrifice of Christ on the cross. The Church teaches that our prayers, our sufferings, and our sacrifices can be applied on behalf of the souls in purgatory. This is not magic. It is not superstition. It is the communion of saints in action, the mystical body of Christ functioning as it should, with members helping one another even beyond death. And Saint Teresa witnessed this with her own spiritual eyes. She saw how a tear offered with genuine love could accelerate the purification of a soul. She saw how a sigh of grief united to the passion of Jesus could open doors in purgatory. But she also saw the opposite. She saw how self-centered tears, those that seek only our own comfort without any thought for the soul of the departed, accomplish nothing. She saw how bitter weeping, the kind that rebels against God and against death, can actually add weight to that soul's purification. Because when you cry without faith, when you sink into despair, when you curse life or drift away from God because of your pain, that soul sees it and they suffer more. They suffer because they can see the eternal consequences of your turning away from the faith. That is why Saint Teresa pleaded with the faithful to transform their mourning, not to stop weeping entirely. Tears are human and God understands them perfectly well, but to let that weeping always be accompanied by prayer. To make every tear an offering, to let every moment of grief-filled solitude become a moment of communion with the soul you miss so desperately. Picture this. Your loved one is in purgatory. They see you weeping, and instead of despair, they find in you a firm faith. They see you kneel, they hear you say, "Lord, receive these tears for the repose of their soul. Let my pain be their relief. Let my love be their salvation." In that instant, something shifts in the spiritual realm. Your weeping ceases to belong only to you. It becomes a redemptive act. It becomes part of God's plan for the sanctification of that soul. And that soul knows it. They feel it, and though they cannot speak to you, they thank you with an intensity you will only fully understand when you are reunited with them in eternity. Saint Teresa witnessed how the holy tears of the living became heavenly dew for the thirsty souls of purgatory. She saw how God gathered every tear shed with true love and transformed it into purifying grace. She saw the faces of souls who, thanks to the tears their loved ones offered, were advancing more swiftly toward the beatific vision. And she also saw the torment of those souls whose families did weep, but who never offered that pain, never converted it into prayer, letting it fall like barren water on dry ground. Your tears carry power, more power than you realize. But that power is only released when you surrender them, when you offer them, when you stop crying just for yourself and begin to weep for that soul who needs your help so desperately. But there is something even more painful that the soul witnesses, something that causes them to suffer in a far deeper way. The second moment. The second moment your loved one witnesses from the other side is devastating in its silence. It is the weight of words you never spoke. Those words of forgiveness you held back out of pride. Those words of love you swallowed out of embarrassment. Those words of gratitude you kept putting off, thinking there would always be more time. And now there is no more time. Now there is only the echo of what could have been said and never was. Saint Teresa received a heartbreaking revelation about this. In one of her mystical visions, she contemplated a soul in purgatory suffering intensely, not for their own sins, which had already been confessed, but for something altogether different. That soul was watching their child live with a crushing guilt, repeating over and over, "I never told them I loved them. I never asked forgiveness for that argument. I never thanked them for everything they did for me." And each one of those repetitions was like a flame burning that soul, not because God was punishing them, but because the love they felt for their child made them share in their anguish. Here is a truth that few people grasp. The souls in purgatory are not cut off from us. They are not in a completely separate dimension where nothing we do or feel reaches them. Quite the opposite. They are in a state of purification that makes them extraordinarily sensitive to everything happening on earth with those they love. And when you carry the weight of words left unspoken, when you torture yourself over what you should have expressed and did not, that soul perceives it, they feel it, and they suffer alongside you. But there is something even deeper. Saint Teresa discovered that these souls can see not only your present remorse, but also the exact moment in the past when you had the chance to say those words and stayed silent. They see the whole scene. They see you opening your mouth to speak and then going quiet. They see you typing out a message and deleting it. They see you moving towards them to make peace and then turning away. They see every one of those missed chances with total clarity, and it fills them with an immense sadness not out of resentment, because in purgatory there is no more resentment but out of love. Out of the love they now understand in all its fullness and wish, with all their being, that you understood too. The communion of saints works in both directions. Just as your prayers ascend to them, their love descends to you. And that love is now pure, scrubbed clean of every trace of selfishness and imperfection. It is a love that wants only your good, your peace, your salvation. That is why, when those souls see you carrying the guilt of words never spoken, they long to cry out, "It doesn't matter anymore, I already know. I understood everything. Don't torment yourself, just help me with your prayers." Because here is the problem. Many people spend years, decades, tormented by what they never said in time. They punish themselves mentally. They sink into depression. They abandon the faith thinking God was cruel not to give them more time. Meanwhile, the soul they love is in purgatory, watching all of it, suffering on their behalf, desperately wishing they would understand that the true way to heal those unspoken words is not through sterile regret, but through fruitful prayer. Saint Teresa taught something truly transformative. The words you never said in life can be said now, in prayer. You can kneel before the Blessed Sacrament, before an image of the crucified Christ, and speak out loud, or in the quiet of your heart, everything you held back. You can ask for forgiveness. You can express your love. You can give thanks. And that soul will hear you, not with physical ears, but with the spiritual perception they now possess. And more importantly, God Himself will take those belated words and turn them into grace for that soul. It is not the same as saying them while they were alive. That is true. The sacrament of the present moment carries a unique and irreplaceable value. But God's mercy is so vast that even our late repentances, our posthumous expressions of love, can become channels of grace when offered properly. The key is not to remain paralyzed by guilt, but to transform that guilt into spiritual action. Instead of saying 1,000 times, "I should have told them," say 1,000 prayers for their soul. Instead of weeping over what never was, act on what can still be, their liberation from purgatory. There are testimonies from saints and mystics that confirm this truth. Saint Catherine of Genoa described how a soul in purgatory appeared to her and said, "My brother weeps because he never asked my forgiveness when I was alive. Tell him I forgave him long before I died, and what I need now is not his tears, but his masses, his rosaries, his sacrifices." Saint Faustina Kowalska received similar messages from souls begging their families to stop tormenting themselves over the past and start praying for the eternal present. Unspoken words carry weight. They weigh on your heart, and they weigh on the soul of the one who has gone. But that weight can be lifted. It can be transformed. It can be redeemed. You simply need to understand that communication with the departed did not end at death. It only changed form. Now it happens through prayer, through sacrifice, through Mass, through works of mercy offered in their name. Say now what you did not say then, but say it in the language they now understand. The language of faith, the language of intercession, the language of love made into prayer and rising like incense before the throne of God. Yet the third moment is the one that souls in purgatory plead most desperately for you to know. The third moment your loved one witnesses from the other side, is the one that souls in purgatory beg you most desperately to understand. It is the moment of your prayers, and also the moment of your forgetting, because both carry eternal consequences that reach far beyond anything you might imagine. Saint Teresa witnessed something extraordinary during one of her deepest mystical experiences. She saw how, every time someone on earth prayed for a soul in purgatory, a light descended upon that soul. A real light, visible in the spiritual world, that brought relief, refreshment, and a drawing closer to the presence of God. She saw how those souls turned their faces toward that light, the way flowers turn toward the sun when they are parched. She saw their suffering ease. She saw their purification quicken. And she saw something more. She saw how those souls recognized exactly whose prayer was reaching them. Yes, your loved one knows when you pray for them. They know it with absolute certainty. They may not hear your words exactly as you speak them, but they perceive the intention, the love, the effort behind your remembering them in prayer. They sense when you kneel down, exhausted after a long day, and still offer a Hail Mary for their rest. They sense when, in the middle of your own difficulties, you pause, think of them, and lift up a plea to heaven. And every one of those prayers is for that soul like cool water in a desert, like a loving embrace in the loneliness, like a promise that soon they will stand in the presence of God. The Church has always taught the efficacy of prayer for the departed. This is not a folk belief without foundation. It is revealed doctrine, confirmed by Scripture, by tradition, and by the experience of countless saints down through the ages. When you pray for a soul, you activate the communion of saints. You become a channel of divine grace. You become an instrument of God's mercy. And that soul experiences it directly and immediately. But Saint Teresa also saw the terrible reverse of this truth. She saw the moment of forgetting. She saw souls in purgatory waiting, yearning, pleading for someone on earth to remember them. She saw days pass, then weeks, then months, and no one prayed for them. She saw those souls gazing toward the earth with a hope that slowly turned to desolation. Not because they had lost hope in God, but because they knew the help could come so much sooner if only someone would remember. And the most painful thing of all, she saw families who had wept bitterly at the funeral, who had promised to pray for their loved one always, who had sworn never to forget, and then, as time went on, simply stopped praying. Life resumed. The busyness returned. The initial grief had faded to a scar that no longer stings quite so sharply, and the soul was left forgotten. Not in the heart, because the love remained, but forgotten in prayer, which is the only thing that can truly help them. Imagine your loved one in purgatory. Imagine they can see your life. They see you get up every morning. They see you go to work. They see you gather with friends. They see you enjoy happy moments. And they do not envy you, because in purgatory there is no envy. But they wait. They wait for some moment in your day when you remember them, when you offer a prayer, when you speak their name before God. And when you do, something changes. The light descends. Relief arrives. The purification advances. But when you do not, when entire days go by without a prayer for that soul, they know it. And while they cannot reproach you, cannot send you a message, cannot make you feel their need, their situation is prolonged. Their time in purgatory is extended, not because God punishes them for your forgetfulness, but because you have stopped being the channel of grace you could be. Saint Teresa urged all Christians to establish the unbreakable habit of praying for their departed loved ones every single day. Not an occasional prayer when it crosses your mind. Not only on anniversaries or special dates. Every day, a brief but faithful prayer, an Our Father, a Hail Mary, a short aspiration. Whatever it may be, but every day. Because that constancy is what keeps the channel of grace open. That faithfulness is what accelerates the liberation of those souls. And there is more. Saint Teresa also revealed that the most powerful prayers are not necessarily the longest or the most elaborate. They are the ones offered with the most genuine love. You could pray an entire rosary mechanically, distracted, going through the motions, just ticking a box, and that prayer will accomplish little. Or you could offer a single Hail Mary with your whole heart, your complete attention, your full love for that soul. and that one prayer may achieve more than 100 distracted rosaries. Quality matters, intention matters, the love with which you pray matters. Because God does not measure the quantity of words, but the weight of the love that drives them. And the souls in purgatory can feel the difference. They perceive when you pray out of obligation and when you pray out of love. They sense when your mind is elsewhere and when you are truly present in prayer. And while they are grateful for any suffrage offered, it is the one offered with genuine love that brings them the most relief. Do not let forgetting be the third moment your loved one experiences. Let it instead be the moment of your faithfulness, the moment of your constancy, the moment when day after day, no matter how busy life becomes, you pause and say, Lord, remember my loved one. Give them your light. Give them your peace. Bring them home to you soon. But what comes next will change the way you live your grief forever. The fourth moment. The fourth moment your loved one witnesses from the other side has to do with a physical place that for many people becomes either a sanctuary of grief or a symbol of neglect, the grave. That patch of earth where their mortal remains lie at rest. The place you visited in tears on the day of the burial. The space that stands as the physical marker of the separation between you and the one you loved. And what Saint Teresa revealed about this will completely transform your understanding of what it means to honor the dead. First, the foundational truth. Your loved one's soul is not at the grave. It does not dwell in the body left behind. It does not linger beside those remains returning to the earth. The soul is in another dimension, purgatory or heaven, entirely separated from the material world. This is clear church doctrine. The grave is simply the place where the body waits for the final resurrection, when soul and glorified body will be reunited forever in eternity. So if the soul is not there, why does it matter whether you visit the grave or not? Here is the deep revelation from Saint Teresa. It matters because of what that visit represents. It matters because of the intention you carry when you go, or the neglect that your absence may reveal. It matters because your loved one, from their place in the beyond, observes your actions and understands the love or indifference behind them. Saint Teresa saw how souls in purgatory perceived when their loved ones visited their graves, not the physical visit itself, because they are not bound to that place, but the intention of the heart. When you go to the cemetery and kneel beside that grave, when you clean the stone with care, when you place fresh flowers, when you spend time there in quiet remembrance, what you are doing is an act of love. And that act of love, though directed toward a lifeless body, reaches the soul as a spiritual offering. It is like the care someone gives to a photograph of a dear friend. The photograph is not the person, but the love you show in keeping it clean, framed, in a special place in your home, reveals your love for the one pictured there. In the same way, your visit to the grave does not physically reach the soul, but the love that moves you to go does. The memory you keep alive does. The connection you preserve does. But Saint Teresa also warned against the opposite error. Those who turn the grave into an idol. Those who go to the cemetery every single day, spending hours weeping without consolation, speaking to the dead body as though the soul were trapped there, refusing to live their own lives because they are clinging to that patch of earth as though it were all they have left of their beloved. And souls watching this from purgatory suffer deeply. They suffer because they know that misdirected love is not helping them. They suffer because they see their loved ones wasting their lives at a graveside when they should be living, praying, serving God, and preparing for their own encounter with eternity. The balance is this. Visit the grave, yes, but do so with faith. Go to the cemetery, but not to speak to a corpse. Go to pray to God on behalf of that soul. Clean the headstone, but as you do, Offer that humble act of service as a suffrage. Bring flowers, but let those flowers be a symbol of your hope in the resurrection, not of your despair in the face of death. Spend time there, but let that time be spiritual communion, not emotional stagnation. And now comes what many are afraid to admit: those who never visit the grave at all. Those who, after the funeral, never return. Those who avoid the cemetery because the pain is too great, or because life has absorbed them so entirely that they simply forget. What does the soul perceive from the beyond when this happens? Saint Teresa was clear. The soul does not take offense if you do not visit the grave, as long as your absence is not a sign of total forgetting. If you do not go to the cemetery but you pray every day for that soul, if you offer masses for their rest, if you live your faith honoring their memory in other ways, then your physical absence from the grave does not matter. The soul understands. The soul knows that true closeness is not measured in cemetery visits, but in spiritual communion. But if you do not visit because you have simply forgotten, because that person no longer occupies even a small corner of your daily life, because your world has moved on without any thought for the one who has gone, then yes. Then the soul perceives it, and while they cannot hold it against you, while they cannot send you a sign, they do experience that abandonment. They experience it because forgetting is one of the cruelest forms of death for those who can no longer speak for themselves. Saint Teresa taught that what matters is not the frequency of visits, but the faithfulness of prayerful remembrance. You can visit once a year, on the anniversary, and make that visit a deep moment of prayer and spiritual connection. Or you can go every week mechanically, out of habit, with no real meaning behind it. The first carries infinitely more worth than the second. So ask yourself, when you go to that grave, what do you truly bring with you? Only flowers that will wither, or prayers that ascend to heaven? Only tears that fall into the earth, or faith that transcends death? Only a pain that locks you in the past, or a hope that looks toward the resurrection? The fifth moment made Saint Teresa herself weep when it was revealed to her. The fifth moment your loved one experiences from the other side was one that moved Saint Teresa to tears when she contemplated it in her mystical visions. It is the moment of the Holy Mass offered for their soul. And what takes place in the spiritual realm during that Mass is so powerful, so transformative, so utterly merciful, that if you could see it with your own eyes, you would never again hesitate to arrange for Masses to be celebrated for your departed loved ones. Saint Teresa witnessed something that surpasses all human comprehension. She saw how at the precise moment of the consecration, when the priest pronounces the words, "This is my body, this is my blood," a wave of grace descended upon the soul for whom that Mass was being offered. Not just any grace, the grace that flows directly from the sacrifice of Christ on the cross. The very redemptive blood of Jesus being applied in a specific and personal way upon that soul in purgatory. She saw how that soul, upon perceiving that grace, fell to its knees in adoration. She saw how its spiritual face was lit by a light not of this world. She saw how the purifying flames of purgatory diminished in their intensity. She saw how the time that soul would spend in purgatory was drastically shortened. And she saw something more. She saw Christ himself gazing at that soul with infinite tenderness, as if to say, "Someone on earth loves you enough to offer me this sacrifice for you, and I answer that love with my mercy." The Holy Mass is the single most powerful act in the entire universe for helping the souls in purgatory. No prayer, however beautiful, compares to it. No act of charity, however generous, produces the same effect. No personal sacrifice, however painful, reaches the same level of efficacy. Because at Mass, it is not the human being who acts, it is Christ. It is the very sacrifice of Calvary made present in an unbloody manner upon the altar. And when that sacrifice is offered for a specific soul, the mercy of God pours out upon them like a torrent. The Church has always taught this. The Council of Trent solemnly declared that the Holy Mass has propitiatory value, meaning it can be applied for both the living and the dead. The Catechism of the Catholic Church confirms it. The saints have experienced it, and souls in purgatory testify to it when they appear to mystics and plead, "Ask that Masses be celebrated for us." Nothing helps us more than the Holy Mass. But Saint Teresa also saw the grief of souls when their loved ones who could arrange for Masses to be said failed to do so. She saw families spending fortunes on funeral flowers, on elaborate headstones, on meals after the burial, yet not offering a single Mass for the repose of their loved one's soul. She saw how those souls in purgatory watched that spending on fleeting things, while the one thing that could truly relieve them was being overlooked entirely. And she saw something even more painful. She saw Catholics who knew the value of the Mass, who had been raised in the faith, who understood doctrinally what they ought to do, yet who through laziness, through forgetting, through being too caught up in their own lives, simply never found the moment to go to the parish and arrange for a Mass intention. Years went by. The soul waited in purgatory, and the help that could have arrived in days or weeks was delayed by decades due to the negligence of the living. Think about this for a moment. Imagine your loved one is in purgatory, suffering, not a meaningless suffering, but the purifying suffering that prepares them to behold the face of God. Yet it is suffering all the same, and you have in your hands the power to relieve it, the power to shorten that time, the power to reduce that intensity. How? By arranging for a Mass to be said. That is all. By approaching a priest, offering an intention, and letting the infinite sacrifice of Christ do the rest. You do not need to be wealthy. Most parishes accept whatever offering you are able to give, however modest. You do not need to wait for a special occasion. Any day is a good day to offer a Mass. You do not need an extraordinary reason. The love you carry for your departed one is reason enough. And if you genuinely cannot afford it, look for parishes or communities that celebrate Gregorian Masses at no cost, or ask the priest to include your intention in a Mass already scheduled. Saint Teresa spoke with particular insistence about Gregorian Masses, 30 Masses celebrated consecutively or on successive days for the same soul. This practice, born from a revelation given to Saint Gregory the Great, carries a special efficacy, not because individual Masses are not powerful, but because the continuity, the persistence, the faithfulness of 30 consecutive Masses creates such an abundant cascade of grace that many souls are freed from purgatory by the time the cycle is complete. But even a single Mass carries incalculable value. A single Mass can be the difference between years of purification and an immediate entrance into heaven. A single Mass may be the greatest act of love you have ever performed for your loved one, because in that Mass, you are not giving flowers that will wither. You are giving the blood of Christ that redeems. You are not giving words carried off by the wind. You are giving the sacrifice that conquered death. You are not giving temporary comfort. You are giving eternal liberation. And your loved one knows it. At the exact moment the priest elevates the consecrated host and holds your intention in his heart, that soul in purgatory perceives it. They feel it. And they are grateful with an intensity that will only be fully revealed to you when you are reunited with them in heaven. Then you will understand that the Mass you arranged, perhaps without giving it a great deal of thought at the time, was the most precious gift you could ever have given them. But there is a moment that many souls are desperate to shout to their families. The sixth and seventh moments. The sixth and seventh moments your loved one witnesses from the other side are two sides of the same coin. One is a warning, the other is hope. One shows the road of error, the other reveals the path of light. and both have to do with how you live your life after they have gone. Saint Teresa had a harrowing vision that left a lasting mark on her. She saw a soul in purgatory watching in horror as their son, shattered by grief after their death, had fallen into alcoholism. She saw how that young man who had once been devout and hard-working now spent his days drinking to forget, to numb the pain, to escape the emptiness. And that soul in purgatory suffered in a way beyond description, not only for their own purification, but because they were watching their child destroy themselves in their name. This is the sixth moment, the sins you commit, justifying them by your loved one's absence. The vices you fall into because nothing matters anymore without them. The bad choices you make because the pain is too great. The turning away from God because He took the one I loved. And each one of those sins, each one of those falls, is witnessed by the soul who loved you. A soul who, from their place of greater spiritual clarity, now fully understands the eternal damage you are doing to yourself. The souls in purgatory can no longer sin. Their time for merit or demerit has passed. Their final destination is assured. They will reach heaven. But while they are in purification, they retain their capacity to love. And that love is now purer, more intense, more selfless than any earthly love could be. That is why, when they see you fall into sin, when they see you drifting from God, when they see their death being used as an excuse for your own spiritual ruin, their suffering multiplies. Saint Teresa heard those souls plead, "Tell them not to sin in our name. Tell them not to use our absence as an excuse to offend God. Tell them that the greatest honor they can give us is to live in grace, not to sink into sin on our account." And this plea is real. It is constant. It is desperate. Because those souls know something you may have forgotten. Sin does not only harm you, it has eternal consequences. And if you are lost because of a grief that has been carried badly, then when those souls finally reach heaven and look back, they will see with horror that their death became the occasion for your condemnation. Do you grasp the weight of this? Your loved one does not want you to honor them by destroying yourself. They do not want their memory to be associated with your ruin. They do not want their grave visited by someone who has lost the faith, the hope, and the love. What that soul longs for from purgatory is to see you standing strong, to see you growing in holiness, walking toward God with greater determination than ever before, precisely because their departure reminded you how short this life is and how much eternity matters. But here is the seventh moment, the radiant reverse of this truth. Saint Teresa also contemplated souls in purgatory glowing with joy as they watched their loved ones, rather than sinking into sin, rising in holiness. She saw a widow who, after the death of her husband, rather than growing bitter, threw herself with even greater fervor into prayer and works of charity. She saw a father who, after losing his son, channeled his grief into founding an orphanage. She saw a daughter who, after her mother's passing, chose to consecrate her life to God in a convent. And the souls for whom these holy lives were being lived experienced an extraordinary relief in their purification. Not because the deeds of their loved ones erased their own sins, only God can forgive those, but because the grace attracted by those holy lives poured out upon them as well. Because in the mystical body of Christ, when one member grows in holiness, all the others benefit, and the souls in purgatory, who remain part of that body, receive the spiritual fruits of the holiness of the living. So ask yourself, how are you honoring the memory of your loved one? By destroying yourself, or by growing in holiness? By drifting away from God, or drawing closer to Him? By using their absence as an excuse for sin, or as a motivation for virtue? Because the answer to these questions determines not only your own eternal destiny, but also whether that soul is consoled or caused additional suffering. Saint Teresa taught that the finest way to honor a departed soul is not to weep endlessly, not to build costly monuments, not to speak constantly of how much you miss them. The finest way is to live in such a manner that when you are reunited with that soul in eternity, they can say to you, "Thank you. Your holy life after my passing was the greatest gift you could have given me. Your faithfulness to God consoled me in purgatory. Your spiritual growth hastened my arrival in heaven." And there are documented cases of exactly this. After the death of his mother, Saint Monica, Saint Augustine did not collapse into despair. He threw himself with greater intensity into his conversion and into his service to the Church. And it stands to reason, following the logic of the communion of saints, that Augustine's holiness benefited his mother's soul. After losing his brother, Saint Aloysius Gonzaga intensified his consecration to God until he reached heroic sanctity. After losing her mother as a child, Saint Teresa of Lisieux channeled that grief into a love for God so pure that it made her a doctor of the Church. The pattern is clear. The saints did not honor their departed loved ones by falling into sin, but by rising in virtue. They did not use death as an excuse to move away from God. They used it as a launching pad to move closer to Him. And their departed ones from heaven now intercede for them with eternal gratitude. You can do the same. You can transform the pain of loss into fuel for your own sanctification. You can make every tear a prayer, every moment of loneliness a turning toward God, every painful memory an act of faith. And when you do, your loved one will perceive it from the other side. They will see it, they will feel it, and their purification will be filled with a joy that only shared holiness can produce. The final 3 moments are the most powerful and transformative of all. The 8th moment. The 8th moment your loved one contemplates from the other side carries a liberating power, for you and for them alike. It is the moment when you forgive on their behalf, when you release the resentment you harbor toward those who hurt them, when you let go of the bitterness toward those who wounded them, betrayed them, or contributed to their suffering. And what happens in the spiritual realm when this occurs is so extraordinary that Saint Teresa described it as chains breaking in 2 worlds at the very same moment. Saint Teresa witnessed something that permanently transformed her understanding of forgiveness. She saw a soul in purgatory bound, not by physical chains, but by spiritual ones that kept it in a suffering more intense than necessary. When she asked God what those bonds signified, she received an answer that shook her. They are the resentments that their loved ones on earth carry in their hearts. Every hatred kept alive in my name adds weight to their purification. This is profound and requires careful understanding. The soul in purgatory no longer hates. It no longer holds grudges. It has already forgiven everything that was done to it in life. Its charity is perfect in essence, though not yet in fullness. But that soul is mystically united to their loved ones still on earth. And when you, their child, their spouse, their sibling, cling to hatred towards those who cause them harm, when you refuse to forgive because they don't deserve it, when you nurture revenge in their honor, you are creating a spiritual obstacle that affects their purification. Why? Because forgiveness is one of the fundamental laws of the kingdom of God. Christ was absolutely clear. If you do not forgive others, neither will your heavenly Father forgive your offenses. And in the communion of saints, where everything is connected, your lack of forgiveness does not only damage you, it becomes an additional burden for someone already purging their own debts. Saint Teresa saw specific cases. She saw a mother in purgatory whose son on earth harbored a ferocious hatred towards the drunk driver who had killed her. That son swore vengeance. He dreamed of making the guilty party suffer. And every thought of hatred, every desire for revenge, was like another stone placed upon his mother's soul. not because God was punishing her for her son's sin, but because in the supernatural order, the lack of charity in the living has an effect on the souls to whom they are bound. But Saint Teresa also saw the glorious moment of liberation. She saw when that same son, after years of interior struggle, finally knelt before a crucifix and said, "Lord, I forgive. I forgive for my mother's sake. I forgive because you ask it of me. I forgive even though it hurts. I forgive even though I don't feel it yet. I forgive with my will even though my heart is still bleeding." And in that instant, she saw the chains around his mother's soul snap apart. She saw an immense light envelop her. She saw her face transfigured in peace. And shortly after, she saw that soul enter into eternal glory. Forgiving on behalf of your departed loved one carries that power. It is not simply a devout gesture. It is not merely a moral recommendation. It is a spiritual tool of liberation that works in two directions simultaneously. It frees you from the poison of resentment, and it frees the soul of your loved one from bonds that are prolonging their purification. And this applies to every kind of situation. Perhaps your loved one died because of medical negligence, and you hold bitterness toward the doctors. Perhaps they were killed in an accident caused by another person, and you crave justice. Perhaps they were victims of violence, and you cannot relinquish the desire to see the guilty party suffer for eternity. Perhaps there were simply people who wounded them emotionally during their lifetime, and you are still holding that against those people now, even if decades have passed. Saint Teresa would say to you, forgive. Forgive not because they deserve it, but because your loved one needs it. Forgive not because the harm was not real, but because hatred chains both you and the soul you love. Forgive because Christ forgave those who crucified him. Forgive because from Purgatory, your loved one is pleading for you to do exactly that. And understand this, to forgive is not to forget. It is not to say that what was done was acceptable. It is not to prevent human justice from taking its course when that is appropriate. To forgive is an act of the will by which you choose not to carry hatred in your heart, not to wish harm on another, and to leave the final judgment in God's hands. You can forgive and still testify in a courtroom. You can forgive and still maintain distance from the one who wronged you. You can forgive and still acknowledge that what happened was deeply wrong. But what you cannot do, if you truly love your departed one, is continue feeding that hatred under the illusion that you are honoring them. Because you are not honoring them. You are chaining them. You are causing them additional suffering. You are delaying their entry into heaven. And when you finally meet them in eternity and discover all of this, the regret will be bitter indeed. There are beautiful testimonies of exactly this. There are families who have forgiven the murderers of their loved ones and experienced a supernatural peace they cannot explain. There are widows who have forgiven those responsible for their husbands' deaths and felt the consoling presence of those souls thanking them. There are parents who have forgiven the unforgivable and seen their children in dreams saying, "Thank you. I am free now. I have entered into the light." These are not fairy stories. They are spiritual realities documented by saints, confirmed by the theology of the Church, and experienced by countless believers across the centuries. Forgiveness liberates, always. And when you extend it on behalf of your departed one, the liberation is twofold. So today, right now, you can make a decision. You can choose to lay down that resentment you have been carrying. You can say, out loud or in the silence of your heart, "Lord, for the soul of the one I love, I forgive. I forgive everything, I forgive everyone, and I place in your hands the justice that is not mine to administer." And when you do, something will shift in heaven. Something will break in purgatory. And your loved one will experience a relief that may well be the final step before their definitive entry into glory. The second to last moment is the one that souls most anxiously await. the ninth moment. The ninth moment your loved one witnesses from the other side is the one that souls in purgatory await with the greatest longing. It is the moment when you, finally, begin living the faith they so desperately wanted for you while they were alive. When you return to the sacraments you had neglected. When you pick up the prayer you had abandoned. When you rebuild your relationship with God that you had let wither and die. And what happens in the spiritual realm when this occurs fills not only that soul with joy, but heaven itself. Saint Teresa had a vision that moved her to tears. She saw a mother in purgatory who had spent years praying, pleading, and weeping for the conversion of her son. A son who had abandoned the faith, a son who was living in serious sin, a son who mocked sacred things. That mother had died with a broken heart, never having seen her son return to God. And now, from purgatory, she continued interceding for him with an intensity that only purified maternal love can sustain. Then one day, that son had an encounter with grace. Perhaps it was an illness, perhaps a crisis, perhaps simply the memory of his mother in a moment of weakness. What matters is that he knelt. He went to confession. He returned to Mass. He picked up prayer again. And at that precise moment, Saint Teresa saw the soul of that mother in purgatory literally lifted toward heaven. She saw the purifying flames extinguish themselves at once. She saw angels receive her with song. And she saw Christ himself say to her, "Enter into the joy of your Lord. Your son has come home. And for that, you too enter today into the house of the Father." This is the power your own conversion holds for the soul of those who loved you. Your return to God does not only save you, it can be the very key that definitively releases that soul from purgatory. Because in the mystery of the communion of saints, the spiritual victories of some become blessings for others. And there is no greater spiritual victory than the conversion of a sinner, the return of a prodigal child, the spiritual resurrection of one who was dead in sin. Do you understand what this means? If your loved one died worried about your soul, if they left this world suffering because they saw you far from God, if their final wish was for your salvation, then your conversion now, late as it may seem, has the power to give that soul the greatest possible consolation. It has the power to transform their pain into joy. It has the power to dramatically hasten their entrance into heaven. And this is not sentimental piety. It is solid theology. The Catechism of the Catholic Church teaches that in the communion of saints, the living and the dead help one another. Your growth in holiness benefits the departed. Your advancement in grace pours blessings upon the souls in purgatory. Your faithfulness to God becomes a merit that can be applied to those who can no longer merit for themselves. Saint Teresa explained this with a beautiful image. She said the souls in purgatory are like spiritual beggars who depend entirely on the charity of the living. They cannot help themselves. They cannot earn new merit. They can only receive what others give them through prayer, sacrifice, and Mass. But there is one kind of spiritual almsgiving that surpasses all others, the sincere conversion of a loved one. Because that conversion does not merely bring them ordinary graces, it brings them the fruit of a victory over the devil, over the world, over the flesh. And that fruit is so precious, it can radically transform their situation in purgatory. Think about your own life. Think about your relationship with God. Are you living the faith your loved one longed to see in you? Are you going to Mass the way they taught you or pleaded with you to do? Do you pray the way they prayed? Do you care for your soul the way they wanted you to care for it? Or have you let everything go since they departed? Have you allowed the pain to push you further from the one thing that truly matters? If so, today can be the day of your return. Today can be your conversion, not out of obligation, not out of fear, but out of love for that soul who from purgatory is watching you, waiting for you, begging you to come home. Out of love for the one who gave their life, their time, their energy, so that you might know God, and who now suffers seeing you far from Him. And when you do return, when you go to confession after years away, when you receive communion after decades of absence, when you kneel to pray after what feels like a lifetime of silence, something extraordinary will happen in heaven. The angels will sing, the saints will rejoice, and the soul of your loved one will experience a relief so great, a peace so deep, a joy so intense, that it may be more than enough to complete their purification and carry them immediately into the beatific vision. There are remarkable testimonies of this. St. Augustine attributed his own conversion in part to the tears and prayers of his mother, St. Monica. And when he was finally baptized, his mother died in peace shortly afterward, having fulfilled her mission. A coincidence? No. Divine design. God's plan for the son's conversion to become the liberation of the mother. Saint Teresa of Lisieux prayed constantly for the conversion of sinners, especially for those who had loved ones in purgatory. She understood that every conversion is a master key that opens doors in the world beyond. She knew that every soul returning to God becomes a blessing for the souls that loved them from purgatory. And you can be that blessing. You can be that gift. You can be the answer to years of your loved one's intercession. All you have to do is take the step. All you have to do is decide that today, now, in this very moment, you are going to live the faith they longed to see in you. You are going to be the Catholic they dreamed you would be. You are going to love God the way they wanted you to love Him. It does not matter how long it has been. It does not matter how far you have fallen. It does not matter how great your sin. God's mercy is infinite, and the love of your loved one from purgatory is tireless. They have not abandoned you. They have not stopped praying for you. They have not given up hope in your salvation. Quite the opposite. From their privileged place in the beyond, they intercede for you with a faith that knows no doubting, with a hope that never surrenders, with a charity that is never exhausted. Respond to that love. Respond to that intercession. Respond to that waiting. Return to God. Live your faith. And watch how your conversion becomes the instrument God uses to liberate the soul of the one who loved you so deeply. And now, the 10th moment that will change everything. The 10th moment. The 10th and final moment your loved one sees from the other side is the most powerful, the most transformative, the most hope-filled of all. It is the moment of reunion. The moment when you, having completed your pilgrimage on this earth, cross the threshold of eternity and come face to face once more with the one you loved so dearly. And what Saint Teresa revealed about this final encounter will forever change the way you live, the way you hope, and the way you prepare for that inevitable day. Saint Teresa was carried in spirit to behold these heavenly reunions, and what she saw surpasses every power of human description. She saw souls who had just arrived in heaven, freshly released from purgatory, or coming directly from earth if they had died in a state of perfect grace. And she saw how other souls, those who had loved them in life, rushed to meet them. But it was not an ordinary reunion. It was not simply seeing someone again after years of separation. It was something infinitely more profound. It was reunion in total truth. In heaven, there are no masks. There is no pretense. There are no misunderstandings. Each soul sees the other exactly as they truly are, with an absolute clarity that only God can give. And in that moment, every previous moment falls into place. Every tear shed on earth finds its explanation. Every pain endured in purgatory reveals its purpose. And every love that seemed inadequate or poorly expressed in life is seen in its true and full dimension. Saint Teresa saw how a son was reunited with his mother in heaven. The son who had wept so deeply for her. The son who had offered so many masses. the son who had forgiven in her name, the son who had converted his life after her death. And she saw how the mother embraced him, not with physical arms, because the glorified body has not yet been reunited with the soul, but with a spiritual embrace so real, so intense, so filled with love, that it was more tangible than any embrace this world has ever known. And in that embrace, the mother showed him something astonishing. She showed him every moment she had witnessed him from purgatory. She showed him how each one of his tears had been grace for her, how every mass offered had been light in her darkness, how every prayer had brought her relief, how his forgiveness had broken chains, how his conversion had been the final key of her liberation. And the son understood, with a comprehension that transcended human intellect, that nothing he had done for her had been wasted. Every single thing had carried eternal weight. But Saint Teresa also saw painful reunions. She saw people who arrived in heaven having completely neglected their departed loved ones, who had never prayed, who had never arranged for masses, who had lived in sin, who had forgotten. And when they were reunited with the souls of those they had loved, there was still love, because in heaven only love exists. But there was also something more, a clear knowledge of everything that could have been and was not, of all the suffering that could have been avoided, of all the years in purgatory that could have been shortened, if only they had fulfilled their duty of charity. And that knowledge, while not producing condemnation, for in heaven there is no condemnation, did produce a particular kind of cleansing. A deep understanding of opportunities lost, a holy contrition that could no longer change the past, but became instead a deeper gratitude for the divine mercy that had saved them despite everything. Here is the question you must ask yourself today. What will your reunion look like? When your moment comes, when you cross that threshold, when you see your loved one again in eternity, what will you find in their eyes? Gratitude for everything you did, or sadness for everything you could have done and did not? Will you see reflected in their gaze your faithful prayers, or the emptiness of your forgetting? Will they embrace you, celebrating your fidelity, or consoling you for your negligence? The answer to those questions is being written right now. It is being decided with each passing day, in every prayer you offer or withhold, in every mass you arrange or keep putting off, in every moment of remembering and every moment of forgetting. Your eternal reunion is being shaped by the choices you are making in the present. And here is the most beautiful promise of all, the one Saint Teresa heard from the lips of Christ himself. If they are faithful in helping their departed ones, then when those souls reach heaven, they will be waiting for them. And not only waiting, they will intercede for them with a special power. Because no one intercedes with greater efficacy than those who were helped in their need and now long to give that love back in return. This means that every prayer you offer today for your departed loved one is an eternal investment. Every mass you arrange is like planting a seed of intercession that will bear fruit when you need it most. Every sacrifice you make for that soul is transformed into a heavenly treasure that will be returned to you, multiplied when you reach the other side. Saint Teresa saw exactly how this worked. She saw people on their deathbeds at the most critical moment when their very salvation hung by a thread. And she saw how the souls they had helped in life came before God, interceding for them with tremendous force. Lord, this person helped me when I was suffering in purgatory. Now I ask you to help them in their final hour. Let my gratitude become their salvation. And God listened. God answered that intercession. And souls who appeared to be lost were saved at the very last moment through the intercession of those they had once helped. This is the perfect circle of the communion of saints. You help the souls in purgatory with your prayers and sacrifices. They, once in heaven, help you with their powerful intercession. And when you are finally reunited with them in eternity, that reunion is the culmination of of a love that death could never break, only transform and purify. So prepare for that meeting. Live in such a way that when your hour comes, when you see your loved one again, you can look them in the eyes without shame. You can hold them with a clear conscience. You can hear them say, "Thank you. You helped me. You remembered me. You prayed for me. You offered masses. You forgave in my name. You lived in grace. And for all of that, today I receive you into heaven with infinite joy." That moment will come. It is inevitable. It is certain. And how it unfolds depends on what you do right now, on how you live today, on how much you love in this present moment that God has given you as a gift. Closing. You have now discovered the 10 moments your loved one sees from the other side. 10 moments that reveal a fundamental truth. Death did not break the bond of love. It only transformed it. It carried it into a deeper, purer, more eternal dimension. Now you know that when you weep alone, that soul sees you and either suffers with you or intercedes for you depending on where they are. You know that the words you never said can still be said now in prayer, and they will echo in eternity. You know that your prayers and your forgetting have real consequences in purgatory. You know that visiting the grave matters not because of the place itself, but because of the love it represents. You know that the Holy Mass is the most powerful gift you can give to a departed soul. You know that the sins you commit, excusing them by their absence, add to that soul's suffering, but that honoring their memory through a holy life fills them with joy. You know that forgiving in their name breaks chains in 2 worlds. You know that living the faith they long to see in you may be the key to their final liberation. And you know that the eternal reunion is coming, and that how it unfolds depends on what you do right now. Saint Teresa of Avila left us these revelations not to fill us with anxiety, but to empower us, to help us understand that we hold in our hands the power to help those we love, even after death. That the communion of saints is not an abstract doctrine, but a living, operative reality. That every prayer counts, that every Mass matters, that every sacrifice carries eternal value. So do not wait any longer. Begin today to be the channel of grace your loved one needs. Pray for them each and every day. Arrange for Masses to be celebrated regularly. Offer your struggles, your labors, your joys for the repose of their soul. Forgive in their name. Live in a state of grace. Honor their memory through holiness, not through helpless tears. And remember, every act of love you perform for that soul is transformed into heavenly treasure that will be returned to you when your hour comes. Every prayer you offer today will become intercession that you receive tomorrow. Every Mass you celebrate for them will be converted into grace for you when you need it most. If this video has touched your heart, if you have come to understand the importance of helping the souls in purgatory, subscribe to this channel. Here you will find more teachings on the Catholic faith, on the saints, on the eternal truths that have the power to transform your life and the eternity of those you love. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss any new content. And share this video with anyone who needs to hear it, because there may be someone out there with a loved one in purgatory, waiting for someone to remind them that they can help. The souls in purgatory are waiting for you. God is waiting for you. Eternity is waiting for you. And your loved one from the other side is looking at you with love and saying, "Thank you for remembering me. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for not forgetting me." We will meet again soon in heaven.